Room, the only way to start your day.
Nairobi, he's here with us this morning. Professor, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Very well, thank you. And
You have
yourself?
noted that I'm already in the Christmas mood from my tie. You can see the snowman.
Yes.
Yes.
Snowmen, Christmas trees, such things.
That's one way to cheer yourself
We
up.
might ask you to sing a song by the time we are halfway.
I used to be a singer when I was younger and more innocent.
Oh.
Wow, now you know.
We can do something with that. I'm sure.
You have to pay me to sing for you.
Mr. Moneybags is to my left, so maybe he can make things happen. Chute Mohammed Said is the Senator for Marsabit County. Joins us for the first time in the Situation Room. Good morning, Senator.
Morning to you.
How are
Thank
you?
you for being here today.
Karibu sana.
happy.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us. Glad to have you both here. Who are we to step away from tradition? Because we go to a different African country every week. We come back from that country with their proverbs. And others would come with spices. But we say, you know what? Let us do the things that we stay with us for a little bit longer. And this week we are in Guinea. Guinea is a francophone West African nation surrounded by the likes of Senegal, Sierra Leone, Liberia, the Gambia. And their proverb this morning, an interesting one, and it says this. If I can, did it just disappear? Yes, it disappeared. But if I can remember. Okay, here we go. The man on his feet carries off the share of the man sitting down. The man on his feet carries off the share of the man sitting down. We can start with you, Senator. How would you interpret that?
I want the professor to start first. Professor.
I knew that was coming.
He wants to be able to oversight you.
Yes.
First, the poem is from Guinea.
Yeah.
So is it in French or is it in one of the traditional languages?
This is in one of the traditional. All of these proverbs this week are not from the colonizers' language. Sorry, they're from the traditional one.
So you said a man on his feet
Yes.
carries the chair.
The share of the man sitting down.
Yeah.
That looks like a semantic somersault. Because if I'm on my feet, I will be the next to sit. So it logically follows that if I'm standing, I should look forward to sitting. And maybe I'm used to so much to sitting that it makes sense for me to let the person who want to sit. I think it just tells us to be generous. Yeah, that you don't need to be that greedy. That just because you are standing up, you must give the seat to somebody who is also standing. You can be generous and give it to whoever wants it.
Sure.
That's the way I see it.
I think maybe the guy who is standing with the chair wants to unseat the guy who's sitting on the chair.
That's a politician.
That's a politician.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's possible.
Yes.
That's the fascinating thing about the human mind is that it will then interpret or see things or in a different perspective than the next. And so that's the great thing about then being able to interpret these proverbs, because then we can all learn different things from different interpretations. Yeah. Well, one thing that may not need different interpretations, just a clean formula of how to go about it, is to move a nation progressively, economically, across board. For the longest time, when people have had conversations, especially on the African continent, for some reason, we point at the blue-eyed boy of economic development who was one time downtrodden, and that is Singapore. All the time, we say, oh, look at what Singapore did. Look at how far Singapore has come. Kenya has used that example many, many times. The president has talked about going first world. And the conversation that we have today is, Singapore is, just on the precipice of first world today. Is Kenya ready to do what it needs to do to get there? Let's start with you, Prof.
I think today I'm on receiving end. But I don't mind. I think the issue of using Singapore as a benchmark to make Kenya first world country I have not been very receptive to it. I think we need to use more than one benchmark. And here are the reasons. One, Singapore is not a country, it's a city-state. So it is easier to manage a small city than a country that is as big as Kenya. And I'll give you some staggering statistics. Singapore is 735 square kilometers. Kenya is 582,000 square kilometers. Simple mathematics tells you that Singapore is only 0.12% of Kenya. In other words, Singapore is less than 1% of this place. Number two, Singapore has about 6 million people. Kenya has about 55 million people. So in other words, Singapore is about 10% of the Kenyan population. So I don't know whether that is the best benchmark we need to use. Number two, when we say that we want to be developed like Singapore, what exactly do we mean? I know people who have a lot of money. We always think in development in terms of money. There are people who have a lot of money, but they are very happy. They are very unsatisfied. They are very unfulfilled. So before we think of how to be like Singapore, we need to define what it means to be developed. Because by the year 2055, that years from now, the concept of what is development might have changed. But in my opinion, we need to look at development in a more broader perspective. Maybe look at the Human Development Index, but also look at how happy people are going to be if they get more money. And number three, why I'm not very happy with the Singapore is, why can't we use an African country as an example? After almost 70 years of independence for African countries, why don't we have an example to follow? But finally, I think wanting...
Why don't we have an example to follow, or why don't we?
Why don't we have an African country that is the benchmark? And finally, I think from my heart, wanting to be like Singapore is a valid dream. I think everybody in this country would want this country to be like Singapore or even better. The question is how to get there. And I think that's where we should spend time discussing this morning.
All right. Senator, are we chasing dreams, or are these things that can actually become reality before we get into how it can be done?
You know, the issue of dream is not there. We've been there in 1965. Our economy was vibrant and very, very good. And our problem today, what the professor is talking about, the issue of landmass is not a big issue. Look at Dubai. We visited Dubai last year, and we went to Dubai University. And what we saw there, they showed us Dubai in 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, and what it is today. And if you look at where they came from, where they are now, that is a better example to look at, not even Singapore. And the issue of population is not a big issue. If you look at today, Marsabit, for example, we have rivers flowing. We have big chunk of land not used. If we take the initiatives to develop those areas, then the issue of population is not a big problem, or land mass is not a big problem. We need to look at Singapore, not only Singapore, Dubai, and many other countries. But our problem is not looking at somebody else. We need to look at ourselves. Do we have the capacity? Yes. Do we have the land? Yes. Do we have the resources? Yes. Are we using them well? No. That is our problem.
Interesting, Senator. You sit at the Senate.
Yes.
And devolution came in to try and create mini Singapores in Kenya, the counties.
Yes.
So that now you could have, as you say, utilization of the resources in each and every county. And you look at Singapore, is the hub of Asia. Kenya is the hub of Africa, in a manner of speaking. But then you say our problem is that we are not able to. Is it because we cannot as Kenyans? But if we were to look at Singapore, they have a system, they have an economy that they are running in excess of, the annual budget is, I think, $140 billion this last financial year. And much as they are smaller in number, they are effective in their system. We don't even have a functional county, because you could argue and say Marsabit might be too far. So then that is why a smaller county works like Embu. In terms of governance, where you sit, because that is where our policies are based, what would you say is the reason why Kenya is seeing Singapore as a mirage?
Our problem, devolution would have been the best thing for this country. But are we utilizing it well? No. The reason being is monies that are going to counties are supposed to develop those counties. Are they developing those counties? No. Why? Number one, a big chunk of that money goes to employment, almost 65 to 70%. If you are going to employ people, you're not going to develop. How do you expect to reach not even Singapore, even 10% of Singapore? That will never happen. Our problem starts from the grassroots, from devolution. So are we doing something? Yes, we are trying to do as a Senate. And the problem we are being faced with are many. Number one, money is going to the counties are not enough. Number two, whatever is going there is being mismanaged to an extent of up to 50%. So if the money is mismanaged up to 50%, what do you expect to happen?
I expect senators who are the oversight of those monies to raise substantive motions so that we have financial controls. That's my expectation as a Kenyan, because every county has a senator who is supposed to oversight the misappropriation that you raise, which I agree with you.
Yes.
The wage bill might be higher, but these people are paid to provide certain services, which also are not being well executed. The expectation for us as Kenyans is that the senators will not come out and tell us money is being misappropriated. They will do the right action of oversight of those resources.
I totally agree with you.
Right?
Our job has a limit. What we normally do, we oversight. Some instances, we even write letters to EACC and tell them there is this and this that has happened. Please investigate. In some instances, they do. And that is our the best we can do.
Now, Professor, that's the worry we have as Kenyans, because we've set up a system of governance that has limitations and controls, as it should. But now we're talking of growing our economy. That's why Singapore is used as an example. Yet, one economist once told me that if you're having an economic question, it should not revolve about money. It should be about planning, strategy, and policies. Because those are the ones that will get us where we are going. From an economic point of view, when you look at our governance system, which we believe was supposed to be the cure of advancing us economically, are we still on track sticking to devolution, trying to make it work? Or is the problem not devolution and other things?
Let me make it even more interesting.
Right.
When we were writing the new constitution in 2010, we had done that benchmark, the US. So it appears anytime we want to move forward, we get another country as a benchmark. And I think that's the mistake we are making, that we don't want homegrown solutions, as Senator puts it, because nobody knows our problem better than Kenyans themselves. And let's go back to devolution. Devolution was seen as a silver bullet. That when you go to Nyeri, when you go to Embu, when you go to Kisumu, when you go to Siaya, when you go to Marsabit, people who live in those counties know their problems better, and they know their solutions better. But what happens? Those were supposed to be small Singapore, as you put it. But what we did is we mimicked the national government at the county level. We have a county service board, we have ministries, we have everything at the national level at the county level. But the problem was, they did not become centers of economic growth, they became centers of politics. And that's the problem that we have. Look at the amount of fight senators and others are always involved in, how to share the money. But nobody talks about where that money comes from. So if everybody in the countries is concerned about how to share the money, not how to generate it, if everybody is only focused on how to milk a cow, not how to feed it, that's why we have this problem. So the question we should be asking, and the center is right, we don't have the money for the national government, for the counties. Where should we get that money to transform Kenya into a developed country by 2025? I think policies are there. I can tell you for free, Kenyans' policies are very good. Even Singapore and others and Botswana come to follow our policies. But I think what is just missing is linking our dream with the reality.
So, Prof, this dream that you are talking about, and Kenya has, just like Singapore, that had the Singaporean dream by the late Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. Kenya has a dream called the Vision 2030. Isn't this a sufficient dream that is only shy of realization into 5 years to come? Are we meeting the dream, the Vision 2030? Are our strategies right? Are our targets effective? Will that be the vehicle that will get us to Singapore? And why Singapore? Why not comparison like Rwanda?
You know, if you're driving a car, if you buy a car, you'll be told whether that car uses diesel or petrol.
Yes.
What happens if you put diesel in a petrol car? You have problems. So I think the problem is us, and that's what we should be very candid about. Vision 2030 is there. we shall probably come up with Vision 2050, 55.
Yeah.
But what are the nitty-gritties of doing that? And I'll give you a few examples. One of the things that made Singapore it is meritocracy.
Yes.
If you go to Singapore, people are given jobs based on merit, not based on who they are.
Yeah.
So one of the ways to move a dream forward is to make sure that the right people do the right job. We do that in this country. So whether you go to the counties, whether you go to the national government, one of the biggest cries of every young man and woman is that jobs are not given on merit. So if I'm not given a job on merit, how am I supposed to propagate a dream and do the right thing?
Yeah.
Singapore realized they did not have money, so they attracted out of foreign direct investment. That's what China did. That's what Vietnam did. That's what Dubai did. You attract people with money because you have right policies, you have right environment, you have right image. They will come and help you develop the country. Look at education. If we are going to have this 2055 dream, then we must have young men and women with the right perspectives, the right skills. So I know we are reforming CBE. I know we are coming up with a new education system, but does it fit the bill? And remember, we changed the constitution. Now we are changing the education system. But is it fit for the purpose? For example, if you go to the university, you find 75% of the students who graduate from the universities are in social sciences, not engineering, not STEM.
Yeah.
So I think if we have to achieve Vision 2055, we must change the hardware, the software. The hardware is there. He put it very well, the senator. The hardware is there, but we must change the software.
Okay. Yeah, and what is the software? Because I think we can go to both of you on this. Is we often use these words until they become like buzzwords now. Oh, we must develop. Oh, we must become first world. We must. What then is development when we really look at it? What are we talking about? That you can turn on the tap and there's water. That you can drive on a road that is smooth. What does it mean that your children go to school without having to pay? What exactly is development? Perhaps that will help us. But then also, can we really even aspire to want to be developed if we are battling with such high levels of things like corruption? Can you really even start to have the conversation where half of the money or the funding or even the attitude that you should be using to go towards these places is already scavenged?
You've mixed issues. Talking about software. 6 months ago, I was in Lake Turkana, and I went to a place where there is an institution, and some donors started some institution. And you know what they did? They train youths on how to do business. They are being taught how to do business internationally. They're being taught how to use computers. They go through the normal computer system, and then they are doing. It's a remote place.
Like a business process outsourcing.
Yes, outsourcing. And those guys from there, they go to some abroad, some Nairobi, and many other places. They are being given skills on how to do things themselves. What we lack here is when you talk about 2030, first of all, you start, if a child is born, he has to crawl first, and then walks, and then runs, and then other things. In 2030 vision, there was nothing like this. They wanted a child to be born today and walk tomorrow. That is not possible. What we are trying to do, an issue of corruption, institutions, the institutions we have are not independent. If they are not independent, what do you expect? Our biggest problem.
They are by law.
By law,
like
the professor has said, we have one of the best laws in Africa. Let me say Africa. But the problem, do we follow those laws? No. And if we want to be where Singapore is, we need to start with 10% only. With this year, we do 10%. Another 5 years, we do 10%. After maybe 20 years, we reach 50% of where Singapore is today.
But Senator, allow me to ask.
Yes.
You say very well that we do not follow the laws that we have, and they're very good. And by the virtue of the office that you hold as a senator of this country, why is it that we are not following the laws that we have made for ourselves as a country?
The laws are made and being broken by whoever is supposed to follow that law. Our problem is we need to have strong, independent institutions. If you want to eradicate corruption, we need to have strong, independent institutions. Let's say, for example, Parliament. It has to be independent. Judiciary has to be fully independent. ESCC has to be fully independent. DCI, IG has to be fully independent. If that is not achieved, then corruption will not be eradicated. It's not easy.
Senator, there's a question that Prof spoke about, and one of the things that I think he said was that if you look at the investments of countries like Singapore, and he made an example of the education, which of course contributes to the high quality human capital development. Kenya is struggling with simple services like education. But I know that counties have been charged with something or a program called the KIPES, the County Aggregated Industrial Parks. And if you look at the success of Singapore, is that manufacturing was one of their biggest inputs to be able to open up the country, bring in private sector developers and big macro companies like HP among others. What is the state of KIPES in counties as a senator?
You know, the problems we are being faced with is management in counties. Like you've said, in Singapore, 15% of their GDP comes from manufacturing. And if you don't, let's say, for example, counties, we have 47 counties.
Yes.
Those institutions which are being managed by counties, if they don't have resources, or if the resources are not managed well, you cannot achieve what you intended to achieve. So what is happening in the counties now are some are down, not complete. Let me give you an example. Markets are being built now in the counties by the national government through affordable housing. And if you complete those markets, then trading will improve. But are we going to depend on trading? No. We are supposed to depend on manufacturing. Institutions that will help manufacturing. How do you help manufacturing? You need to create experts. You need to create young boys and girls who can go into manufacturing with skills. And if you have 47 counties bringing in young boys and girls with good skills, today, in the next 5 years, we'll be somewhere.
But they're skilled students coming out of school, Senator, and maybe this, as I respond to that, could be a question then for Prof. Is that, Senator, we have engineers who are being churned out of the schools, public universities. We'll just take public ones. In the thousands every year. There are nurses, doctors who are also coming out of schools every year, skilled, who don't have jobs. There are teachers, interestingly enough, even after government has hired 100,000 teachers, interns, there are teachers who are trained in subject matter who don't have jobs. There are people who go through the hundreds of TVETs that we are told operate in the country, again, who don't, interestingly enough, they are trained. But then when you want to go into large infrastructure projects, we don't use them.
Yeah.
We bring in experts from other countries to do this same job under the guise of development agenda, under loans and that kind of funding. So then are we really serious about our development, Professor? Because interestingly, as we say that, we're training them, we're sending them to school, but we're not using them for the same development that we're saying that we are putting the thing into in the first place.
We are discussing a very interesting issue here. And even before we go to TVETs and our graduates, he brought something that was very important, institutions. Because Singapore and other countries have grown because they have strong institutions. Institutions that outlive us. And one of the things that is creeping very slowly into this country, and nobody is raising an issue, is a lot of centralization. Now, when you have a lot of centralization, you kill institutions. And when you kill institutions, that's why corruption crops in, because people can do what they want, because the institutions are weak. So we need to make our institutions very strong.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big concern to me. Now, about counties. Counties have more than one problem. I know they don't have enough money, but they have another problem nobody talks about: brain drain. Now, the best point in Marsabit, the best point in Siaya, the best point in Turkana, when they finish high school, when they finish university, where do they go? They all come to Nairobi or they go abroad. So if you don't have the best brains to make those counties small Singapores, just like what Singapore did, what is going to happen? So you'll have those resources there, nobody to manage them, nobody to come up with innovations, nobody to come up with new ideas. So I think it's a high time we made our young people, young men and women, stay in the counties and develop them. On county aggregation, parks, interesting. I know they are there, but for you to become a good businessman, you need a market. And if you look at Singapore, if you look at China, if you look at Vietnam, if you look at Korea, they had global markets. So one thing that we need to do is to link these aggregation parks to global supply chains. So that if I'm making something in a certain county in Laikipia, wherever it is, if the Kenyan market is not big enough, let me take it to the East African market. Let me take it to the Egyptian market. But for us to do that, we must have a very good image in terms of branding. That Kenya is good in this, Kenya is good in this. Finally, when we think about education, because that is my space, you take kids, they become graduates, TVETs and also degrees and so on, you don't give them jobs. And why don't you give them jobs? Because there's no economic growth. Because if the economy was growing, we would be employing them. The few projects that you are talking about, roads and so on, are too few to stimulate this country's economy. But if the economy was growing at 10%, as envisaged in Vision 2030, I'm sure we'd be even having Ugandans, Tanzanians, people from Ethiopia coming to get our jobs. The same way people go to Dubai, the same way people go to US looking for jobs because the economy is demanding them. So the starting point is to make the economy grow, and then we are going to pull everybody behind. That's what happened in other countries. But for the economy to grow, then we must make the economy conducive for people to bring their money because they don't have enough money. But now if you talk to the business people, whether they are big or small, they are complaining about how hard it is. Senator, you're a businessman. Everybody is complaining how hard it is to run a business.
Yeah.
So if we don't put those more basic things right, our image, the ease of doing business, we shall be talking about this even in 2055.
Which is going to be very sad. And as I come back to Prof, as Senator, I'll have you know that half the markets that are constructed are underutilized or not utilized at all. And you'll find vendors around the markets. They don't go into the market because it's a story building.
That's very true.
That is, people don't want to go first floor, second to buy greens. All the vendors come out, you have no parking. So it's a story for another day. So we must look at the efficiency and the proper utilization of our resources.
But that is, I totally agree with you.
Right. Now, Prof, no country has ever developed by exporting their human capital. Because nowadays it's not even human resource, it's human capital. No country has ever developed by not manufacturing, by not tapping into industrialization. No country has ever developed by exporting all their raw materials in their raw form and then importing the finished goods. But that's where we are as a country. So I wonder, as we talk of Singapore, a country that has very stable and predictable tax regime, unlike us as Kenyans, a country that has strong institutions, unlike Kenya, but we have a more, perhaps, a better functional, if well supported, constitution and policies, but we are not able to fast track our growth to that direction of Singapore. What is our problem from an economical point of view? Because these systems do not run themselves. These strong institutions are run by men at the end of the day. From an economical point of view, what are the bits and bolts that we need to start working on and moving so that this machine can start taking us to 2030?
We start by believing in ourselves. That's the starting point. So if, for example, you have men and women who have been to school, they are graduates,
right,
and you don't believe in them. So it's very interesting how when you leave this country and you go elsewhere, you're in very high demand and people respect you. But within the country, people don't believe that you are capable. And if we can believe in our people that they are capable of building roads, they are capable of starting enterprises, they are capable of doing whatever they do, then that will be the starting point. We must believe in ourselves. I'm always fascinated by how people have been talking ill about 844, that 844 is very bad, so we need CB and so on. But I know men and women, boys, young men and women in this country who went to Oxford, they went to Harvard, and they excelled. So you can imagine why we need a new philosophical thinking. Because if we keep on telling our youngsters in high school that 844 is bad, it's not a good education system, then they don't believe themselves. They believe they'll not be successful. So we must make our young men and women believe in themselves. That they are going to start the next Google, the next Microsoft, and so on.
Or whatever that may be.
Manufacturing. I totally agree with you, because once you set a factory, you are going to have very many other jobs created along the supply chain, from the suppliers to the distributors to your accountants to marketers and so on. But the question is, what are we going to manufacture? That should be the starting point, because if we manufacture what everybody else is manufacturing, we're going to buy it.
Okay.
And that's why innovation comes. That can we come up with something that other people are not doing? And that is tied to your other question about raw materials. What can we do with our coffee? I've always asked this question: when did tea become English tea? I hear of English tea.
Yes.
When I went to England, I never saw tea growing anywhere.
They don't know.
But they've been able to make us believe it is their tea. So if we can now start value addition, and the president has been talking about that, value adding our materials, whether it is avocado, whether it is tea, whether it is coffee, whether it is minerals. Like now I heard we have gold in Kakamega.
Yes.
Imagine.
Are we going to add value to that? Are we going to add value to anything we produce in this country?
Or, I'm sorry, if I can just interject there, Prof, is that even if you have the gold, are you going to develop to the point whereby the world, which has set a global standard for which gold then can be manufactured, processed, and then sold, is set by a big boys club out there who, according to them, are on same par? So you can have all the gold in the world.
That's true.
But if you want to sell it in the same world, they're going to ask you, okay, hi, where are you in this current standing? So does it not bring us back to the things that we are talking about in terms of how have you sorted out your backyard first?
I'll make it even more dramatic. Those big boys we are talking about, how can we fight them? I want to hear from any of you, including Senator here. When did you talk about East African community in your debates? When did you talk about African Union? When did you talk about COMESA? When you talk about IGAD? Because one way for Africa to fight with those big boys is to use the current institutions, East African community. We can debate, we can always negotiate better through East African community than as Kenya, through African Union as one country. So if we can now come together and negotiate as African groups or blocs, we shall get a better deal. But now what happens? Kenya goes to China, you have a bilateral. Kenya goes to another country, you have a bilateral. So at the end of the day, we can never talk with one voice.
Okay.
And finally, very important, and this is something we must admit, not because the center is there. If we have to develop, we must identify the role of the government. The government is a very important factor in development. Look at why Chinese companies have done so well. We have state-owned enterprises, and Chinese government gives them subsidies. Even these big Korean companies that you see, Samsung and the rest, the government helps them develop. Now here, we see the government as a hurdle in expanding your business, in making your business global, in making your business a multinational. So the government must also play its part in facilitating the growth of our businesses, build the borders, so that those markets we are talking about that are not in Kenya, we can access them elsewhere, being held by the government. Let me use one last example. If today I want to go and set a business in Ethiopia, and I go to the Minister of Foreign Affairs or Minister of Industry and tell them, I want to set this business in Ethiopia, what help shall I get?
I'm just wondering, Prof, because the question of manufacturing is a very big one. And of course, government investment and creating an ample environment for ease of doing business has to be cemented. But to the both of you, one is, of course, the question of manufacturing vis-a-vis value addition. And if you visit all our county governments, each county has something that they are good at. You go to Kisii and you imagine the soapstone, the women and the young people along the roads who are just, selling their ware without necessarily looking at what Kisii County government, for example, will be able to do. We've just been talking about gold in Kakamega. And these are stories that Kenyans keep hearing. The other time we were told about water in Turkana, among others. So must we emphasize manufacturing? Or is it about creating an ample environment to be able to value add on what is already existing? One. Number two is a question of on-source revenue. And Prof spoke about counties not being able to have enough money. But we have a big program within county governments on their ability to be able to generate their own source revenue. And there are lots of streams, over 100 of them, that each county has, of course, despite the challenges. Are we meeting our targets? Where are the gaps? And towards this journey to Singapore, what must we do to address these gaps?
Let me talk about on-source revenue.
Yeah.
Some counties have done very well, like Kiambu County, Muranga, and also Narok County.
Yeah.
And many counties have to do even more. On source revenue itself can manage those counties.
Sure.
But are they collecting them? No. That is our major problem. If they start collecting them, digitalizing them, they will collect a lot of money. But they're not collecting well. So the other issue you've just raised is the issue of value addition. There was a time we went as a Senate, we went to Dubai, and we went to Dubai Free Zone. You know what we found there? KTDA were packing Kenyan tea in that institution and labeled as tea from other places. Let's say, for example, you want tea imported into Pakistan or any other country. You put your label, you put your name, made in Pakistan, and so and so. But the tea comes from where? Yeah. And then we ask KTDA one question. Why don't you do the value addition here in Kenya? And he said, the problem we have is packaging materials are very expensive when it comes to Kenya. The reason being is VAT and taxes that are being charged by the same government. So how do you add value? Here in Kenya, you cannot. So again, you talked about manufacturing. What the government needs to do is draw a plan. If you look at cement manufacturing today, we are sufficient.
They have a big four agenda, and manufacturing is agenda number one.
Yeah, that is an agenda. But you need to have a drawing. You need to have a plan. That what do we need? What are we importing? How do we stop those importation? If you look at cement today, it's okay. We have enough manufacturing companies here.
Yeah.
Still, we do have, yes, that's fine. But there are other things that we need to manufacture, like sugar, for example, and many other things. And it is for the government to sit down and agree on what to do and how to help our local investors to manufacture them locally. I want to give you an example. The biggest problem our manufacturers are facing today is electricity bills.
Yeah.
The cost of electricity in Kenya is very high. It's up to 28 shillings per kilowatt hour.
Just gone to 33 for your information.
Sorry?
It's just gone to 33.
Yes, you see?
Yeah.
And when about, I think 2 years ago, we went to Ethiopia as a Senate, and we visited electricity generating company. And you know, the capacity they have is 13,000 megawatts of capacity.
Wow.
And they are giving Kenya 200 megawatts of electricity, and Tanzania 100. But their capacity is 13,000, and mainly hydroelectric.
Wow.
Kenya is producing only 2,700. And the prices in Ethiopia is 0.7 birr per kilowatt hour. For manufacturers, is around 1.5, 1.7. How do you compete with East African countries when the electricity bill is high and labor is cheaper by almost 60%?
Well, Senator, I like what you say.
You understand?
However,
Yes.
my question is, you are the government,
Yes.
because you are a sitting senator. And I like that you have benchmarked in these countries, Ethiopia, Dubai, and elsewhere. But we don't hear substantive moving motions in Senate for the nation or pronouncements that will help us as Kenyans by the virtue of the offices that you hold, whereby you come out and state that having benchmarked on this, having learned on this, having seen this, and comparing the policy with the one we have here, homegrown, this is the direction we need to take.
Yes.
Because we could talk about the problem until the cows come home, or until my white hair turns blue. However,
Or our stands white.
yeah, or yours turns white, correct, Professor. However, we need to hear, like, where do you stand as a government? Because you're a senator and you're the voice of the people, at least from the county where you come from.
Yes.
But nationally, you should be that voice that says, yes, we do have a problem, but these are the proposals we need to start looking at for us to take the direction Professor is mentioning of the journey to 2055.
I totally agree with you. We had a lot of discussions, especially when I came back from Ethiopia. We had a motion, and we discussed this a lot. Let me tell you, The problem facing Kenya today is private power producers. There were contracts signed before even this government came in, signed that expires in the next maybe 15 years. It was supposed to, the contract was for maybe 20, 30 years, but maybe, most probably, the contracts we have now will expire in the next 10 to 15 years. The cost of supplying electricity is expensive because of those private power producers.
Because you will pay for what they produce regardless of whether
Exactly.
you use
If
it.
you don't use it,
or
you will still pay.
Yeah.
That is our problem.
Today is Thursday, and we are stating, because we are waiting for the state of the nation later today.
Yes.
Allow me, if I may state this way. Because sometimes we beat around the bush for too long. We miss the mark. Could our problem be, or am I right to say that our problem is poor governance, poor leadership? The leaders that we have, and you are one of them, because you're a senator, are the ones who are not able to steer this.
I want to tell you, as a leader, we have a big problem. We, as leaders, will take responsibility. Not necessarily only the current leadership. Even the previous leadership left some issues and inherited by the current one, and still now continuing. And I don't want to run away from our responsibility. We'll take full responsibility.
Okay.
Prof,
First,
what is
Prof,
your-
we
what
had
is your
a,
statement?
we had a president called Emilio Mwai Kibaki.
Yes.
He spurred our economy with an old constitution. He took us closer to Singapore because we realized that, yes, we can increase our tax collection and we can tulipe ushuru tujitegemee. And he spurred the economy in a manner that really inspired us to develop even the Vision 2030. So the question of leadership comes into play. What are your thoughts?
I think that's something we cannot escape. In fact, when you talk about Singapore, you talk about Korea or another country, leadership always comes. In fact, the development of Singapore is associated with Lee Kuan Yew. The development of China and all other countries, there's always somebody there. And one of the questions I've asked in the privacy of my thoughts is that before they got the new constitution, President Jomo Kenyatta, President Moi, President Patrick Mwai Kibaki, they had a lot of power. Suppose they had used that power to move the economy forward, it would be very far. So I think the big problem is that we vote for our leaders, but then we stop at that. Because politicians, we have one here, is if we don't keep on pushing them, they relax. So I think what the voters need to do is that once we get senators, MCS, president, and everybody, we should always be forever vigilant. Because if you're not vigilant, they'll relax.
Allow me to bring in something, because we always use, since we're talking about it, and the Singapore example is one that is there. I believe it was Senator Okio Mtata who said, if you want to be developed, then you must do what the developed did. Right?
Yes.
Because if that's where you're aspiring to do, some people have reached there. So do what they did. One of the things that Singapore has done, and I think that is the problem that is bedeviling a lot of our nations, not just Kenya, but also on the continent, is that they dealt with corruption with an iron fist. It is not a question about whether you can get away with 1, 2, 3. They didn't just talk about it, but they jailed, fined, and removed several people from office. No question. They have what they call the Corruption Practices Investigation Bureau. It's like the DCI on steroids. And they established this in 1952. You want to know who they've jailed and removed? They removed the Minister of State for Environment. As far back as 1975, they jailed him for accepting bribes related to property development in the same place where he was supposed to be working. The Senior Director for Public Works Department was jailed for getting kickbacks from contractors. Did it? Just from contractors, the things that we see happening every day here. Pending bills, where? For getting kickbacks from those contractors, out, jail. Minister for National Development, you can compare that to one of the ones today, that's up to you, was investigated for taking bribes. He committed suicide because this is how bad it was going to be for him had he not. They continuously and regularly prosecute and jail police officers, custom officers, government executives, procurement officers. We're also looking at that in 2016, a chairman for development was jailed for 60 months after fleeing for 30 plus years. He ran away for 30 years and came back to the country, they still got him and jailed him for 5 years.
Institutions again.
Exactly. Institutions that work no matter the time. In 1996, the Minister for National Development, this is the one who committed suicide. Edwin Yeo was an officer now of this investigation bureau, was convicted and jailed for misappropriating $1.7 million and used the funds for gambling. Another one in 2012 was convicted and jailed, not for taking money, but for receiving sexual favors from a supplier in exchange for influencing contracts. Now, it goes across board. If you don't get rid of the bad behavior, impunity, corruption, you will be developing until Joe's hair turns grey or white or brown.
If you come in, if you watch the movie from Third World to First World by Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, that's on the story of Singapore. In addition to the successes, you realize that there is no favoritism. In fact, part of the movie...
The meritocracy I'm talking about.
Yes, and the meritocracy. That part of the movie is Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew's mother being brought to his office to be unwell. And then he says, why are you bringing my mother to my office? Take her to the health facility.
Next to
where you are, next to our village. In Kenya, even some of these health facilities next to the leaders' villages, senators' villages don't work.
Yes. You see, our problem, a major problem, I think you need to look at something people are avoiding to look at. Corruption starts from the villages. In Singapore, a politician seeking for votes will not bribe anyone. If you go to, for example, now, ask for votes, you go to a village, they will tell you, don't tell us your stories. Don't tell us what you want to do. Don't tell us this and that. Give us the money. So, every village you go to, you pay money.
Senator,
let me finish.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Let me finish.
We have 2 minutes, maybe.
Yes. Okay. You see, by the time you are elected or you lost the election, you've spent millions of money. Then you are an MP, Member of Parliament, or National Assembly, or the Senate, or MCA. Or, for that matter, governor or woman rep.
I'm president.
And the president. What are you going to do? The same people who took your money, you sometimes think of, how do I recover this money? On top of that also.
But it's not your money. This is the problem, isn't it?
This is the reality. And on top of that, every single day, someone will call you because of hospital issues, schools, and some small other problems.
Again.
Because of time, Senator.
Yes.
People call you.
Yes.
Because the system that you're supposed to make work, you have failed in your duty as a government. If SHA was working, people would not be holding Harambee for medical funds and other stuff. If our education was free, accessible, and quality, people would not be fundraising to pay school fees. However, so that's a point of note. You've said something very interesting about corruption. So I would ask an elected person like yourself, why bribe to go to office? If you cannot be elected on the issues that you want, why not walk away and let the people deal with their problem otherwise? Because we cannot justify corruption by saying, I bribed you to get into office. That's why I'm stealing your money so I can recover.
You see, it is not, you see, let me be very honest with you.
Right.
You go to a village, that is the trend of the day. You go to, you're in Kenya, you're not from Singapore. This is what is happening in Kenya. You go to a village.
And yet you want to go there.
Yes, you want to go there. And I want to agree with you. There is something very important you've said. And I always have issues with this. Institutions, if you don't strengthen the institutions, the laws are there, you are in trouble. And our problem today, institutions that are not working the way they are supposed to work. That is our major problem. Even Parliament. I'm not running away from my responsibility also. We have a problem. You'll be told there is this and this law wants to be passed, do it in these few days.
Prof, as we close this
if we have time.
Yes. I'm just wondering, do we need our own Lee Kuan Yew, and what must we do to get there as we also respond to some of the issues?
I think governance is definitely an issue. And I think next time when we go to the polls, let's vote for people who we think can take us to the position of Singapore. I'm not saying the current people can take us there, but I think that should be from the grassroots, from the village, as the center put it, up to
the top.
International.
And I like, if you want to know how we can get to Singapore, I would request all of you to go to Marigat or Baringo or Mogotio and see ant hills. Very tall ant hills, some of them taller than me. They are being built by ants. Working together, each doing its part. So if Kenya has to become Singapore by the year 2055, each of us must do his part.
Correct.
From State House to the streets.
Absolutely.
If each of us does not do his part, we shall talk about this in 2055.
And that's a good point to end on, because that's something to think about. If the ants can build this thing that then becomes an attraction, an ant, and everybody walking in tandem doing its part, what more can we do? Thank you very much for both of you for being here this morning. The Senator in the Republic of Kenya for the county of Marsabit is Chute Mohammed Said. Professor X in Iraqi is a lecturer at the University of Nairobi as well as an economic analyst. Thank you so much for being here this morning at 5 minutes past 8. Good morning.
Thanks, Alisana. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
We needed one who did to discuss this issue.
The latest news from around. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.